Most people assume that it is okay to support the troops even if you don't support the cause for which they are fighting. We are about to challenge this assumption. I should, however, start by saying that I have nothing but the utmost respect and gratitude for anybody who serves in the armed services and the security that they grant me that actually allows me to ask these questions. I am also aware, of course, that a real military job involves a lot more than just killing, so really we're asking, should we support the troops insofar as their activities are violent? So, if we're going to have a military discussion, we're going to need a military man, and that means I'm going to have to put on my old cadet uniform. Right then, eyes front, listen in. Remember our starting assumption. If you are fighting in a war, it doesn't matter for you, morally, whether the war is just or not. You still have to obey the rules of engagement, but if you're fighting an unjust war, that's not your fault, that's the fault of the people who sent you out there. It's okay to participate in an unjust war, and troops that do still deserve our support, and combatants on either side have equal rights to kill each other. This is called the moral equality of combatants. By the way, note that this assumption is different from the assumption that there can be a just war. You might think there's no such thing as a just war, but still think the troops are worth supporting even if their cause isn't. Thank you. In 2006, which is moments ago in philosophical terms, Jeff McMahon argued against the moral equality of combatants. We shouldn't always support the troops. McMahon draws an analogy between war and burglary. Suppose a burglar breaks into somebody's home and attacks them, and the only way they can defend themselves is by killing the burglar. As they attack the burglar defends themselves. But if the burglar kills the homeowner in that self-defense, it's still murder. By taking part in the initial aggressive action, the burglar has forfeited their right to defend themselves. They can be justly killed, but they cannot justly kill. And so McMahon thinks it is with war. If you are fighting an unjust war, then you cannot justly kill the enemies, even in self-defense. It's acceptable for them to kill you, but you killing them is murder. So if we want to know whether we should support the troops, we need to know they're fighting a just war. Otherwise, it's murder. Bollocks, this analogy with burglary doesn't work. Wars are much bigger and more complex than just one burglar attacking one homeowner. But if a gang of burglars broke into a house with just the intention to harm anybody they found in there non-specifically, then we would still say the resulting death was murder. Similarly, just because a war involves large groups of soldiers, not necessarily with a specific personal target, doesn't mean that the combatants are morally equal. Alright, but war involves disparate responsibility. A burglar chooses to burglar and the responsibility is all on them, but in a war, combatants are ordered to fight by long chains of superiors. But in a war, if somebody is ordered to do something bad and does it, then the moral blame is multiplied, not diluted. The commanding officer and the individual soldier get the blame for it because I was just following orders is not an excuse. Similarly, if the burglar was ordered to go into the house, then we would still say the resulting death was murder. What about conscription? Even in cases of conscription, I think it follows from McMahon's theory that conscripts into an unjust war would be committing murder by fighting. Just because somebody is threatening your life doesn't mean it's acceptable for you to kill a third party, i.e. not the person threatening you. So just because the mafia boss is threatening to kill the burglar doesn't mean it's acceptable for the burglar to kill the homeowner. So McMahon's analogy looks pretty airtight. But this is just harsh. Assume, for the sake of example, that World War II was a just war. Are you really saying that every Allied soldier was murdered and every Nazi soldier was justly killed even when defending themselves? Well, just because a war is unjust doesn't mean every shot fired in it is a moral crime. There might well have been Nazi soldiers who were unjustly murdered, for instance if they were surrendering or defending civilians. McMahon's theory is supposed to provide a general outlook rather than an individual case-by-case way of attributing blame or punishment. Also, just because somebody does something bad, even murder, doesn't mean we can't feel bad that their lives ended in that way, and doesn't mean we shouldn't remember what they did with a sympathetic viewpoint. And this ties into a very important point, which is that McMahon's theory outlines what is morally permissible. So in an unjust war, it might be impermissible for you to kill the enemy and permissible for them to kill you, but that doesn't mean that some other course of action like mercy or forgiveness or just not fighting at all wouldn't be morally better. So, should we support the troops? McMahon would say only in a just war. Which of course prompts the question, what is a just war, and can there be such a thing? Which is a good topic for another time. Well, lots to think about there. Indeed. Thank you, Colour Sergeant. My pleasure. What do you guys think? Should we support the troops? Are combatants in war morally equal? If you can, try to focus on the moral philosophy in the comments. There might be other reasons to support the troops, practical ones or patriotic ones, but remember the question is, morally speaking, should we support the troops? Next time we could either do we have individual duties to the environment, or should we clone extinct animals? Send me your questions, comments, queries and comebacks underneath the video on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, or by email, and for more philosophical videos, please subscribe. Wow, there were a lot of comments underneath the last episode. Let's see what the Philosophans had to say about should the government be secular. It looks like a lot of you guys already did my work for me. There were some misunderstandings in the comment section, but you did a great job of clearing them up. For instance, Royal Giraffe, Inspiring Grace, and a few others said that you can actually choose your religion. But Doom Biber Beer and PDK both excellently pointed out what I'd already said in the video, which is that you can choose to go to church or wear certain clothes or eat certain things or even to preach in the streets or even to call yourself a member of a certain religion, but the argument said you cannot actually choose to believe that the religious claims are true or not, and so it would be unfair to discriminate people on those grounds. It would, however, Aaron Burns, MT, Zoltka Palmer, and several others be acceptable to punish people based on what they did as a result of those beliefs. So if you've got somebody who just genuinely hates gay people and they can't do anything about that, well, then you can't really punish them for that. But if they choose to harm gay people as a result of those beliefs, then you can punish them for that. Before I forget, Carneades.org raises an excellent point about doxastic voluntarism. You might not be able to choose to believe just like switching on a light, but you could choose to go to church and read the books, and maybe over time you will acquire religious belief, and that's like you choosing to believe. I'm aware that this is a subject of some debate, but to my mind that's not really full doxastic voluntarism. It seems a little bit like going to sleep. You can't choose to just go to sleep now, but you could choose to go to bed and turn off the lights and snuggle down, and you can set yourself up to do it, but that's still not really choosing to do it. Do you see what I mean? I don't think it's full doxastic voluntarism. Lots of people were batting the Euthyphro dilemma around as well. Obviously I didn't go into that very much, that was down to time constraints more than anything else. This week, more than usual, I encourage people to go into the comments of the last episode and read them, because there was some seriously good stuff going on there. Similarly, the debate about circumcision might be worth coming back to another time. Aidan Alexander, I do agree with you that people sometimes get circumcised for non-religious reasons, but those reasons are often descended from religious reasons as a matter of tradition. Whether it offers any net health benefit, i.e. whether the benefits it does offer outweigh the costs, or whether they are the best ways of achieving those benefits, is a subject of huge debate that maybe we shouldn't get into here. But, however, vaccination is definitely good for you. There's no sensible debate about that, and there's things like herd immunity to consider there as well, so your analogy with vaccination isn't really parallel. Bithyewidge raised the excellent point that churches are often considered tax exempt, not specifically because they are religious institutions, but because they are considered to be charities. A brilliant point, thank you for bringing that up. I'm not sure of the minutiae of church taxation laws, but I suppose any income that was for charitable purposes would be tax-free. Of course, then the question becomes, what counts as a charitable purpose? And the multi-million-pound question, does expanding your church count as a charitable purpose? That really is all we've got time for this week. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye!